The Making of a Nation, The Beginnings of Israel's History by Charles Foster Kent, Chapter 6, Part 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Making of a Nation by Charles Foster Kent, Chapter 6, Part 1. The Power of Ambition. Jacob the Persistent. Genesis 28, 10 through 33, 20. Parallel readings. Historical Bible 1, 101 through 21. Hastings Dictionary of the Bible 2, 526 through 535. Principles of Politics, Chapter 2. Now as the boys grew, Esau became a skillful hunter, but Jacob was a quiet man, a dweller in tents, and Isaac loved Esau, for he had a taste for game, and Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was preparing a stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was faint. Therefore Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat quickly, I pray, some of that red food, for I am faint." Therefore his name was called Edom, red. But Jacob said, "Sell me first of all your birthright." And Esau replied, "Alas, I am nearly dead. Therefore of what use is this birthright to me?" And Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him, and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and stewed lentils, and when he had eaten and drank, he rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Historical Bible. Charles Darwin, when asked for the secret of his success, said, "It's dogged as does it." Oh, well for him whose will is strong. He suffers, but he will not suffer long. He suffers, but he cannot suffer wrong. For him nor moves the loud world's random mock, nor all calamity's hugest waves confound, who seems a promontory of rock, that, compassed round with turbulent sound, in middle ocean meets the surging shock, tempest buffeted, but citadel crowned. Tennyson. Life is comic or pitiful. As soon as the high ends of being fade out of sight, and man becomes nearsighted and can only attend to what addresses the senses. Emerson. Who rises every time he falls, will sometime rise to stay. 1. The two brothers, Jacob and Esau. South of the Dead Sea, bounded by the rocky desert on the east and the hot, barren Arabia on the west, extends the wild, picturesque range of Mount Seir. It is a land of lofty heights and deep, almost inaccessible valleys, the home of the hunter and the nomad. From a few copious springs there issue clear, refreshing brooks, which run rippling through the deep ravines, but soon lose themselves in their hot, gravelly beds. A few miles further on they emerge and again disappear, as they approach the borders of the hot, thirsty wilderness that surrounds Mount Seir on every side. Here in early times lived the Edomites, a nomadic people who established themselves in this borderland of Palestine long before the Hebrews gained a permanent foothold in the land of Canaan. The name, Edom, is found in an inscription of a king of the 8th Egyptian dynasty. In the biblical narrative, Esau evidently is the traditional ancestor of the Edomites, even as Jacob figures as the father of the 12 tribes. One of the aims of these narratives, it seems to many scholars, is to explain why the Israelites, the younger people who settled latest in Palestine, ultimately possessed the land and conquered the Edomites. The portraits of Esau and Jacob are remarkably true to the characteristics of these two rival nations. They are also faithful to human nature as we find it today. Of these two brothers, which, on the whole, is the more attractive? Which resembles his father and which his mother? Read the accounts of their lives, Genesis 24 through 27. What noble virtues does Esau possess? What was his great fault? Reckless men or drifters with generous impulses, but with no definite purpose, of whom gypsies and hobos are extreme types, are found in every age and society. Why is it that men of the type of Esau so often in time become criminals? 2. The man with a wrong ambition. The modern tendency to idealize the character of Jacob simply because he was one of the famous patriarchs is both unfortunate and misleading. Although he vividly typifies certain characteristics of his race, the Jacob of these early prophetic accounts is portrayed with absolute fidelity and realism. His faults are revealed even more clearly than his virtues. The dominant motive in his life is ambition, but it is a thoroughly selfish ambition. In the light of the stories, state in your own words what was the exact nature of Jacob's ambition. How did it differ from that of Abraham? What methods did he use to achieve his ambition? Were these methods justifiable? What is your view of the statement, "The end justifies the means"? Try to define exactly the method of determining justifiable means. May Jacob's action be excused because he was acting under the direction of his mother? Does a man with a selfish ambition always injure others? Does he in the end injure himself most of all? How? Every type of selfishness is directly opposed to a man's highest self-interest. Jesus continually had this large truth in mind when he declared, "He that findeth his life shall lose it, but he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it." Jesus himself illustrated this principle. Cite other illustrations from history, from your own observation or experience. Was Jacob, even with his wrong ambition, a stronger and more promising character than his brother Esau? Why? Would you rather have your son a boy of strong character with vicious tendency, or a weakling with harmless, virtuous inclinations? 3. Jacob's training in the school of experience. Jacob's experiences as a fugitive well illustrate the homely proverb, "The way of the transgressor is hard." He who deceived and cheated his brother soon became the victim of deception and fraud. Most painful of all was the ever-haunting sense of fear because of the consequences of his wrong acts that followed him even in his life as an exile, and, like a specter, confronted him as he returned again to the scenes of his boyhood. These painful experiences were probably essential to the development of Jacob's character. Are there any other ways in which men of this type can be led to appreciate that their ambitions are wrong? Was Laban any more unjust or tricky in his dealing with Jacob than Jacob had been with Esau, or than Jacob was with Laban? Note the grim humor running through these stories. They are the type of stories that would be especially appreciated when told by shepherds beside the campfire. The most significant point in these stories is that they declare that Jehovah's care and guidance followed the selfish deceiver even as he fled the consequences of his own misdeeds. Why should that divine care shield him from the consequences of his misdeeds? Do we find such instances today? How do you explain them? What is the meaning of the story of Jacob's vision at Bethel? What promising elements did Jehovah find in Jacob's character? What practical lessons did Jacob learn during his sojourn in Aram? Was Jacob really a hypocrite, or did he in fact fail to see any inconsistency between his trickery and meanness and his worship of Jehovah? A man may be sincere in his religious worship on Sunday and yet cheat a neighbor on Monday. Analyze carefully the nature of his religion. End of Chapter 6, Part 1. Recording by Selena Arter.